Welcome to the Circuit of Success. I'm your host, Brett Gilliland, co-founder and CEO of Visionary Wealth Advisors. Excited today, my man, Shawn Stevenson. How you doing?
Good. Nice to see you.
Good. Nice to see you. So I call him the world expert on sleep. I don't know if that's the proper way to say that or not, but that's what I'm going to say today, man. This guy's the author of Sleep Smarter, the book. He's got a podcast called The Model Health Show. You can probably tell if you're watching this that, he and I got a lot in common. We're both, well, he's ripped, I'm not. He's the founder of Advanced Integrative Health Alliance. He's been on Forbes, ESPN, Fox News, The Today Show, Men's Health, Women's Health, all sorts of stuff, man. So
it's been a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
So tell us, maybe the people that don't know who Shawn Stevenson is, who is Shawn Stevenson? What makes you the man you are today?
Wow. So I like the world leader on sleep. I like that. But for me, the sleep part was a kind of out of necessity. I'm a nutritionist by trade, and I actually went to school here in St. Louis, UMSL, University of Missouri, St. Louis. And to be honest, I was wildly miseducated. It's just a kind of traditional education, and we're not really taught about the smaller facets of health and wellness. Whenever the conversation about sleep comes up, it's more like just get 8 hours of sleep.
Right.
It's very cookie cutter. And just like today with diet, we know that a cookie cutter approach simply doesn't work. It has to be catered to you and your unique needs and your unique lifestyle. And so that was the approach that I started to take for sleep with my patients who were coming in to see me on a daily basis. And it took about 5 years in practice before I started asking about sleep, because we would see folks that, they were able to get off their blood pressure medication, lisinoprils and statins and metformin for diabetes and all this stuff, working along with their physician. But there was always this percentage of people that wouldn't get the results. They were eating well, they were exercising, sometimes too much, but their kind of kryptonite was their sleep. And once I figured out some clinically proven ways to help improve their sleep quality, everything changed.
Yeah.
And I just felt there was a big missing part, a big missing conversation in the market. And I had to convince my publisher of that, because being a nutritionist and somebody who had a big platform, they wanted me to, put out another fitness book, another nutrition book. And I really kind of put my foot down. And now this book has just become a movement. Yep. And I think it's translated in like 20 countries now.
Wow.
100,000 sold, and, just all this. But not just that, but it's the things that have come from it, all the articles out there that other people are writing, and the courses being created, and so much of the content out there is just kind of pulling from that first domino from Sleep Smarter.
Well, and even your show, Model Health Show. I mean, my gosh, the guests you've had and the content you're putting out there and serving so many people, it's huge. So it is crazy, because it's like when you have that good night of sleep, right? To like you, what you were saying is, when I was researching you, I was just thinking, get your 7-8 hours of sleep, you're good. But man, we're going to talk today about there's different exercises, there's things you can do to have better sleep, right? So just because you have 8 hours and I have 8 hours, you're probably getting better 8 hours of sleep than I am, even though at the same time, right?
Yeah. It starts with the fundamental question of what is sleep, right? It's just a very weird thing.
Yeah.
Like we just kind of do it, and we don't think too much about it unless we have problems with it.
Yep.
Then we start asking questions. Yep. And sleep, to really drill it down, what it is it's basically, how do we know we're asleep, is that we can monitor this via just monitoring changes in your brain waves. That's literally what sleep is. It's a change in your brain waves. So you're moving from, right now, we're kind of in a normal waking state of beta, right? The beta waves. And we can get into some gamma as well. But then as we transition into sleep, some of these things can be experienced consciously, like going from beta into alpha. That's when you're in the zone, like it's like a calm focus. And then you transition from there to theta, and then to delta, that's when we know you're in deep anabolic sleep.
Okay.
And so what we really are targeting is not 8 hours of sleep, it's getting a sufficient amount of time in each of those stages of sleep, which, to drill it down, which experts you talk to, there's 4 stages. 2 of those, the main ones being REM sleep and non-REM sleep. And so what is REM sleep? REM sleep is rapid eye movement sleep. And this is when you're doing a lot of your dreaming. But this is also a time when you have critical processes, like something called memory processing takes place. This is where folks, right now, what you're learning, what you're hearing, gets converted to your short-term memory, is during that phase of sleep. So it becomes kind of consolidated and filed away and becomes a little bit more permanent. So if you're lacking in REM sleep, And literally there are things that you can do that mess up your REM sleep and you don't remember what happened. So for example, alcohol, drinking alcohol before bed or drinking a lot of alcohol. I know maybe this hasn't happened to you or anybody out there, but somebody you might not remember what happened.
Exactly.
What did I do? Did I say that?
Right.
It's because your REM sleep, something gets created called a REM rebound effect.
Okay.
And your REM sleep is damaged. And that's what really the whole concept of what we call a hangover is, just a result of your REM sleep being damaged. And so that's REM sleep. Then non-REM sleep is that deep anabolic sleep. That's where you produce a lot of your human growth hormone, which is also known as the youth hormone. Kids have a ton of it. This is why they have so much energy.
Right.
And my argument is that it's not because you get a certain age and you stop producing HGH. It's because when we get a certain age, we stop sleeping well and we stop abiding by, because for me, my kids have a sleep routine.
Right.
But when you get older, it's kind of like, I guess I should get to bed, especially when we go to college and just like all rules are off.
All rules are off. That's right.
And then we tend to just carry those habits into later in life. So.
Yeah. Well, I think it's hard too. I mean, I've got 4 kids. I was just I run an executive forum every month and with a bunch of great guys, and we were just talking about our memories the other day, and how I think as we get older and as we have more stuff going on in life and kids stuff going on in life, I get up every day, take kids to school, work all day long, go home, run to basketball games. I'm preaching the choir, right? You're doing the same stuff. But it's like then when I finally get some what I call that Brett time, where my wife and I can relax and all the kids are finally in bed, I don't necessarily want to go to bed right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yep,
but I know I've got to do it. So I'm getting I go to bed probably around 11:30 and get up around 6 or 6:30. Yeah. So walk me through and all of our listeners through, what process do I need to be doing to get better sleep?
All right. So what we really want to look at here is, again, just relatively simple. Once we have that base understanding that we need to spend sufficient time in those different stages. That's what it's really about. Because I think a good analogy today is that now the conversation has shifted from calorie control with food to the quality of those calories. We know that that's very different. Yes, you can lose weight eating, 500 calories of cookies,
right?
If you cut calories, but what is it going to do to your insulin? What is it going to do to your cortisol? It's going to have a different impact on you, right? So 500 calories of cookies is going to impact you very differently than 500 calories of like salmon and broccoli.
Right.
All right. And the same thing with our sleep minutes. These minutes are not created equal. There's a big difference between being unconscious and actually spending time in those high quality stages of sleep. And so we want to do things in our life to support these stages. Now, what does that look like? Just to kind of throw one out there, super low hanging fruit. There was a study done at Appalachian State University, and they wanted to find out, does the timing of your exercise impact your sleep quality? And so they had exercisers to train at 3 exclusive times throughout the study to track their sleep. The first phase, they had them train exclusively at 7 a.m., and they tracked all their metrics. Then they had them train exclusively at 1 p.m. in the afternoon. And then they had them train exclusively at 7 p.m. in the evening. They compiled all the data, and they found that when you exercise in the morning, you tend to sleep longer. You spend more time in the deepest, most anabolic stage of sleep, so you're producing more human growth hormone. And you have more efficient sleep cycles. So you're going through those stages more efficiently, which is going to make you better recovered. Yep. And a lot of folks already, it's kind of the time that they do exercise already. But just because you do this one thing right, you could be screwing everything else up, with your routines later. Yeah. But this could be something for a lot of people that aren't taking advantage of this. So I did a study myself and made myself the human guinea pig for a year before the book came out, because I've been a morning exerciser forever. And so I started training in the afternoon, but I just worked out for like 5 minutes in the morning just to get that benefit. And all of my numbers still improved. My body fat percentage, testosterone, reaction time, everything got better. And I was still sleeping the same quality. So what I'm trying to say is, even if you're working out after work, get 5 minutes in the morning. Because what that does is
stretching, some push-ups, whatever it may be.
Some body weight stuff. Yep. Go for a quick power walk, do some yoga, whatever. Just do some jumping jacks. You're, quote, getting your blood pumping.
Yeah.
That's what we, can kind of consciously think. But what you're really doing is, it's something we call clinically a cortisol reset. And so a big issue for people is they would come into our office and we would call them tired and wired, because in the mornings, they would have a very difficult time getting out of bed because their cortisol is too low. And cortisol is this stress hormone a lot of people know about today, but it's not a bad guy. It's just when it's produced at the wrong time, it can be a problem. So it's too low in the morning, which it should be at its peak. That's how we evolved. That's when we get up and get going and, gather and hunt and all that stuff. And so, but then in the evening, the cortisol will be too high. And this is where you have that phenomenon, like you're driving home, you're yawning, like, I'm going to get to bed early tonight.
Right.
Then 10 o'clock rolls around,
it doesn't
11
happen.
o'clock, and you're just like, I'm up, scrolling,
That's
through
me.
YouTube. Yeah. And, it's just like, and this is my quality time for myself just to kind of, unquote, unwind. And so that cortisol rhythm is really screwing people up.
So how do you fix that?
By doing the exercise in the morning, you get that spike. You get cortisol back on its normal track. Because once it peaks, it's going to want to come back down in the evening. So that'll make you more inclined to want to go to sleep in the evening.
So even if it's just 5 minutes, you don't have to do the 20, 30, 40 minutes.
No,
so
not
5 minutes of that,
That's
I can stick with my normal routine right now. I'm doing the Peloton and then a workout like around 4 o'clock usually.
Yeah.
So as long as I get my morning.
Yes, and here's the thing that's also interesting is being mindful to not work out too late, though.
Right.
If you plan on getting to bed at just, say, 10 o'clock and you're wrapping up at the gym at 8 o'clock, you're going to have some problems.
Right.
And I've seen this, like, people, for years, man. I'm talking about even top athletes.
Well, yeah.
Like MMA champion is just like, hey, you know what? I can't really seem to get to sleep at night.
Yep.
And he's finishing his,
third workout of the day.
He's done working out at like 8:30 and he's trying to get to bed at 10:30, with his, jiu-jitsu class or whatever. And so it's just those small things, because what that does is your core body temperature is going to be too high. And here's another tip too, as far as helping that sleep cycle. There's something called thermal regulation, and this means that the human body is always changing its temperature. And I was taught in school it's 98.6 degrees. Like that's, but that's not true. Like your body temperature fluctuates all day. That's kind of an average.
Yep.
There's a natural normal drop in your body temperature at night for everybody, except folks who have chronic insomnia. They tend to run hotter at night. Your body temperature comes down because that turns on processes for sleep-related, optimizing your sleep cycle. And so what the research indicates is that one of the big ways to improve your sleep is to cool off your environment, to support your body in that thermal regulation. And experts agree it's somewhere between 62 and 68 degrees is ideal for sleep. And so there was a study, and I cited several studies in Sleep Smarter, but one of them was done on insomniacs. They found that they didn't tend to run hotter, and they fitted them with these cooling caps that ran cold water over their head. They dropped their temperature just 1 degree, and that effectively eliminated all their symptoms of insomnia. They fell asleep just as fast as folks who didn't have insomnia. They slept almost as long, and they woke up less frequently, just like as if they didn't have insomnia, simply by cooling them off. So these simple things that, we know what it's like. Also, everybody's had the experience of sleeping when it's too hot.
Right.
It just doesn't,
it's not
it
good.
Sucks.
So what do you put your thermostat on at night?
Well, you got to keep in mind your significant other too.
That's right.
My wife is actually from Kenya.
Okay.
And so she doesn't play with the cold.
She's
very
not
much.
having that.
But we tested it, and she does sleep better when it's cooler. But her big thing is getting out of bed when it's cool in the morning. So our hack is, we do 68 right at that outer limit. When I travel and I'm by myself, I'll 65 or know. But I get up before her. I just get out of bed first and go turn the thermostat up.
Got it.
And this is such a gift that we have today in our lives. If people listen to this, you have this ability to control your environment.
You can do it from your iPhone before you even get out of bed.
There you go. And so many people today, we have these creature comforts, and we don't understand that, through our evolution, it naturally, no matter what environment you live in, whether you live in Nebraska or whether you live in Chile, the temperature comes down in the evening at least a little bit.
Yeah.
That's something that we need to be mindful of because it helps us sleep better.
Okay, so then you put it back up to, say, 70, 72 during the day.
Exactly.
And then, awesome. Well, we're here with Shawn Stevenson on KTRS. We're excited to have him today. Again, I call him the world sleep expert, and we're going to learn a lot more when we come back with Shawn Stevenson. Welcome back to the Circuit of Success. I am your host, Brett Gilliland, and today we're in the studio with Shawn Stevenson. He is the author of Sleep Smarter and has a podcast called the Model Health Show, iTunes, all the other places you can find it. Great show. He's got great guests. We're talking about sleep. And, I read that your mission is to help people become the healthiest, strongest, happiest version of ourselves. Yeah. How are you doing that? All this stuff, you're doing it, obviously, but talk to us and talk to our listeners about the things that really maybe even go through a day you're like, and I know your life's can be completely different than, say, a guy like me, but what should we be doing from morning until bedtime, if that's an okay question?
Yeah. That's a big picture question.
Yeah.
But they're just the basics, It's so funny how, for years I'd have people coming into my clinic who were asking, what do I do for this? What do I take for this? And always looking at a way to try to treat a symptom instead of doing the basic things that our genes are literally expecting us to do just to feel good. So one of those simple things, and I've been doing this for 15 years, every single day, the first thing that I do when I wake up in the morning, after, of course, go use the bathroom, then I drink water. I drink about 20 to 30 ounces of clean water.
Right.
And it's one of those things, and there's two reasons why I do this. Number one, while you're sleeping, this is the time when you wake up in the morning, you're dehydrated, period. And you can even see that, your urine's more concentrated. Right. But your body is doing a tremendous amount of processes while you're sleeping to bring you back better. There's a lot of metabolic waste and residue that's left over, from repairing your liver to even, repairing muscle.
Right.
Your brain and your lymphatic system is flushing out metabolic waste. And one of the things we're seeing with Alzheimer's, for example, is an inability of the brain to detoxify itself. Because when you're sleeping, this cleaning system in your brain is 10 times more active. Your brain is mostly water. It's mostly water.
Right.
And so your brain actually, a lot of people don't know this, is going to sound bad at first, but it shrinks when you're sleeping. And that's a great thing because it swells up during the day because of it's doing millions of processes, right, and there's a lot of waste. So when we sleep, all of these processes are taking place to make us better. But if we're not flushing this stuff out, supporting your body, a lot of this stuff gets recirculated and reabsorbed. So get up, drink water, help your body flush the crap out.
Yep.
That's number one. Number two, there's something called water-induced thermogenesis. And what that is, and there's several studies that have found this out, which is crazy that people don't know this.
Right.
But what they found is that drinking 15 ounces of water is what they use in the study, can effectively boost your metabolism to the degree that you'll burn about 30 calories additional just from drinking water. And you'll get an increase in your metabolism for the next hour, 2 hours, 3 hours later, simply by drinking a nice 15-ounce glass or bottle of water. And so that's one thing I do when I get up in the morning. I set my metabolism on track for success, help my body to clean out this waste, and that's how I start my day.
I like it. I have a goal every time I'm in an hour meeting, which I have a lot of those throughout the day. So kind of like your water bottle over there. My goal is to drink one of those every single hour. So, you find yourself going to the bathroom a lot, but it's obviously worth it. So, all right, so we start in the morning there now, and then you do your workout in the mornings. I know you already worked out today. So getting our exercise in. Talk to us about eating, right? That's obviously critically important for our success as well, for our brain, for our sleep. How do we not engage in the, I just feel like a hamburger and fries today, right?
So I got to tell you, I'm not the enjoyment guy.
All right, I like that.
Like we're going to.
So I'm not going to the extreme.
We're getting burgers and fries tomorrow.
Right, exactly.
But for me, it's just looking at what are these simple things that we're missing. So when folks will come in that are dealing with migraines, that are dealing with issues even with their spine, that's something that I was struggling with when I was 20 years old. It got me into this field, was this degenerative disc disease, which is supposedly was incurable, but now we know other than that. And my doctor at the time when I was 20 told me that I had the spine of an 80-year-old man, and my bone density was so low. And one of the things that really helps to create the disc itself is water. But your disc it's something that's called non-vascular, so water doesn't get there directly. And not to get too fancy, but it's a process called remote diffusion. And so basically you have to have every tissue in your body has to be well hydrated, then your spine gets it, right?
So it's the last to get it in the whole body.
It's basically the last place to get it, the disc, the intervertebral disc. And this is why a lot of people actually, you could start the day at, just say you're 5'10".
Right.
By the end of the day, you could be 5'9.5", just because of gravity. Like, we don't really think about this. Like, if we throw something up in the air, it's going to fall.
Right.
Gravity is constantly pushing on us, and especially compressing those discs. And that hydration is super important. So just by doing that one thing, like people coming in, I want to have more energy. what's your water intake look like? I really need to work on that. Then don't talk to me about anything else. Like, let's do that one thing.
There's no magic bullet, right?
No.
Right.
But if you're not doing the basic things your genes are expecting, we don't need to talk about level 3, 7, and what supplement to take and all this stuff. So drink water. If you're not doing that, we don't need to talk about anything else if you don't have energy. How's your sleep? If we don't do that, we don't need to talk about what supplement to take. Right. So there's that piece. And of course, food is something that, we interact with on a daily basis. It's part of our culture. It's an enjoyment as well. Food tastes good so that we eat it.
Right.
And I really am very much in the camp of we have to create a lot more enjoyment with our diet and our nutrition to get people to do the quote right thing. Suffering should not equal health. Matter of fact, it doesn't even make any sense if you say the two things together. But that's what a lot of us do. We try to suffer through it so that we can have this health that we think that we want.
Yep.
And so for me, it's a very simple principle: is to eat real food. And the beautiful part about it is that we're talking about tens of thousands of different foods and flavor sensations, and just a lot of great enjoyment that we have access to that heretofore we didn't really know, because in our culture, I grew up in the 80s, and so this was like the boom of processed food.
Right.
I remember when Pop-Tarts came out. Like, I was blown away that I get to eat this in the morning.
In like a minute and a half.
Yeah, and toasted or not. It's just like, yes, like I got my breakfast is in this compact little, and then we were marketed to that, it's fortified with vitamins and minerals and this whole thing. And, the TV dinners, like, man, I mean, we went hard with TV dinners, like, for real. Salisbury steak. I didn't even know what the other steak was.
Steak,
right. Like, it's just this mushy steak or whatever. And, so that was my reality. That was our reality growing up. And we just got away from real food, just real food that you can recognize where it came from. So what's real food look like? If it has a label on it, chances are it's not real food, all right? It just diminishes the chances of it. Not saying that there aren't packaged foods that aren't real food, but, we're talking about produce, vegetables and fruits and nuts and seeds. If you think about just if somebody from an indigenous culture was to come to your house, this is a good example, and they would go through your pantry and your refrigerator, would they be able to recognize it, right? So, we'll just say an indigenous tribe member looks through, your refrigerator, and they see, the vegetables and the fruits, and they see the meat, and they're like, oh, yes, we gather these things. We hunt. And then they see your pantry, and they see the nuts and seeds. They're like, yeah, we gather these nuts and seeds.
They see the big bag of Doritos, though.
Then they're like, what the hell is that, right? Or, even bread.
Right.
Like, what?
It's true.
Because it doesn't resemble the wheat anymore. It doesn't resemble the grain. Not to say that you can't do those things, but we're getting a little bit further away from the original food itself.
Right.
And so that's what I do. I really predominantly have, we'll say around 90% of my diet is just like real food I can recognize where it comes from. And you can take those ingredients and make some of the most amazing foods, and really enjoy the process of being well.
Yeah. Somebody told me one time, if you just went to the grocery store and shopped on the exterior walls.
Yeah, that's one of those strategies mentally.
Right.
But we got to be honest. Those centered aisles, though, they're very attractive.
They are very attractive.
Like, it's very difficult,
right.
So you got to even ask the question, like, what? For me, I always want people to ask, like, what is my goal when you go shopping?
Right. That's true.
Like, what am I eating for? What is the purpose? And also, you got to find pleasurable ways to go about that. You can't just say, I'm doing this diet, so I'm about to get all this salad. I'm going to shop the perimeter and get a bunch of vegetables, and I hate vegetables. Like, we got to figure out a way that you can enjoy the process.
So let's talk about kid lunches real quick. So you have kids in school, right? So what are they eating the school lunch, or are they mom and dad packing them some lunch, and it's a healthy, nice, get the day started right type of lunch?
So I've got a great example of this. Like,
I
really
can't wait
great
to hear
example.
it, because with my 4 kids, man, I worry about that stuff.
I've got a son who's a senior in high school right now at Lafayette, and he's 18 years old. And I have another son who's 7, right? And he is in first grade. And I've gotten to see the long-term effects of living the way that we live with my older son. And so...
Because he was healthy and did all that stuff when he was 7 and stuff, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, when he was younger. I mean, it was some years into his being around when I kind of woke up and started changing things. So he had his practices that he was used to. Like, I used to take him to McDonald's or whatever, And so it took time. And also, you got to understand this too, that your kids are going to be around stuff and not to be neurotic about
Sure.
it, because that can be one of the things that happens once you become aware of how messed up these things can be. And I was just sharing, I just did a show yesterday, and we were looking at an ingredient that's in a lot of different processed foods, monosodium glutamate. And I was sharing studies that was published in the journal Obesity, directly correlating with people carrying around more body fat and with neurological issues and behavioral issues for kids. There was a study in the journal Pediatrics that had families to take out, artificial ingredients, and including specifically MSG and one other ingredient as well. But they found immediately the kids started sleeping better and they had less behavioral issues by pulling out those two ingredients. And so with that said, when you find this stuff out, you still don't want to be neurotic because the kids are going to go to birthday parties and all that stuff. And so for my older son, I just kind of, whatever, when he's out, that's fine. But what he discovered was, because he ate well with us, but when he would go to a friend's house or he would go do this thing, he wouldn't feel as good.
Yep.
And he would see he was more tired, and he would see that, and I would just subtly help him make the connection, like, oh, he's complaining about whatever. I'm like, what did you eat today? But I wasn't like, what the hell did you eat today?
Right.
I wasn't like that,
Right.
Badgering the witness. And he started to see that he felt better, he performed better. And you got to find that leverage point with the teenager, which is like, for him, he wanted to, perform when it's sport, And so every day this kid packs his lunch. He's like grilling chicken and like, putting his rice in the rice maker, making his vegetables and all this stuff. I never once told him to do it. Never once.
That's a big deal.
Every morning he's getting up.
But you showed him, though, too.
Yeah, he did see me do it.
Right.
He gets up and he has this green drink, which is, this whole food kind of concentrate.
Yeah.
Every morning. Like, he literally, yesterday was Valentine's Day when this was getting recorded, and he was trying to go and take his girlfriend breakfast in the morning, which I gave him the idea as well, because he was like, what do I do, Dad? I forgot.
Breakfast.
And so, but he literally walked out the door, and then because he left the hour early to go and be able to do it. And then he ran back in the house. He's like, I almost forgot my green juice. And so he went in and, had his green juice because he knew he was about to eat some pancakes.
Blender and all that kind of stuff? Is that what
So this was just a simple, like, mix with water kind of thing.
Yep.
But he does do that, too.
Yeah.
And so he got that. But for my younger son, same thing, 9 times out of 10, he does take his lunch. And what we'll generally have is just we'll give him leftovers from dinner the night before, And the teachers, I swear, I come into the school and they're like, Braden, we admire him so much. He has these such nice lunches and all this stuff. And I'm just like, yeah. That's cool. That's our lifestyle.
How we eat, right?
Yeah. And so they invited me in to speak to their teachers. And,
that's cool.
And so I did actually agree to it because I don't usually do that kind of stuff now. I travel and do all this stuff. But when I left and I just saw, I think it was 2 days ago. It was like, kind of a blur. But it was this week. And one of the teachers came up to me and she was like, after you left, we started a strength training program with our teachers. And somebody comes in and we all do this every Wednesday. And they're like, they changed a lot of the different things they're doing just based on me coming. It just was really fulfilling.
Well, I love the fact that what you focus on are things that are very easy to execute, right? I mean, obviously you do a lot of things that aren't easy. And I shouldn't even say they're easy because they're not easy. So some of the times the most basic things are not easy. But so you got water, the food sources we eat, the right amount of sleep. I mean, these are all things. Everybody listen to this right now. We can control this literally starting today. Yeah. Right? So talk to us now. What's a typical day? I know there's no typical day, but when Shawn Stevenson wakes up now, you're traveling the world, man. You're working with all sorts of great people. What are you enjoying the most about what you're doing?
Oh, my goodness gracious. I can't say that I didn't know that this would happen. I really just kind of had a vision of having this impact. And so I'm really comfortable in it. And if I could share this with everybody, because I know a lot of entrepreneurs are listening, people just wanting to build a business and be successful. But for me, I really felt that if the things that are happening now happened 5 years ago, I wouldn't have been ready. I feel I would have messed some things up because I just wasn't able to receive all the stuff that was coming my way. And it's a lot.
What's an example? Like, what's coming your way right now that 5 years ago, no way you'd have been ready for it?
This year alone, I'm speaking at some of the biggest events going, for entrepreneurs and business builders. I'm speaking at an event in Portugal and London, Jamaica in 2 weeks, and with literally the top speaker in the world, Eric Thomas, is the event in Jamaica, and they invited me. they invited me out, and I admired him.
Right.
And it's just like,
it's kind of surreal, isn't it?
It is, man. It is very surreal. But I know who I am, and I know my value that I'm bringing to the table. And they said that they felt like they signed KD, Kevin Durant because they have this incredible team,
Right.
And it's just like, you focus on you and building your brand and building your impact and your influence. Just focus on that, so that the right people will be attracted to what you're doing, instead of, a lot of people spend a lot of time, quote, trying to network and like all this outreach. Just help people, get good at doing what you're doing, and the rest of that will follow. So I'm really just enjoying the connections, because I very much had what I refer to as lone wolf syndrome, where I got too much in just focusing on me and doing it myself, which I think there's some benefit to it, but also it can limit you, because I can't make the impact I want to make by myself, in all honesty. And I really do want to change culture in a positive way, just to get people feeling good, because I know that a lot of people don't do well because they don't feel well. And so just so that we can have conversations, because there's a big kind of dissonance right now in our culture as well, just so we can, it's difficult to have compassion for another person if you feel like crap. It's just harder. It's not that it's not possible. It just makes it easier when you feel good. And so I'm very passionate about that. And by me opening myself up, opening my doors, and connecting with some of the great people out there, from Tony Robbins and Ed Milet and Eric Thomas and all these great people in my life now, and just seeing how we can do this together. And also people who are specifically in my space in health and wellness, and understanding it's cooperation. It's not competition.
Cooperation, I like that.
And the people who are doing the right thing, that we lift each other up.
Well, it's an abundant mentality, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's always enough to go around.
Yeah. So abundant that everybody's going to start listening to your podcast instead of mine.
No.
They're like, man, this guy's good. So I just want to know how I get to sit in a room with a guy that's hanging out with Tony Robbins. That's pretty cool. So how about 5 years ago, when you're putting out great stuff and great content, but nobody was calling, asking you to come speak? How did you stay true to your passion and your mission to keep putting it out?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm very much in the camp of, you don't have to quit your 9 to 5 in order to build your empire.
Yep.
And so for me, my brick and mortar business, I had an office in Clayton here in the business district here in St. Louis, and I was just seeing people, seeing patients and clients just all day. People coming through my doors, and that was how I was sustaining my livelihood, while I was having the realization that this isn't necessarily scalable. And also I started to see where my gift was, which is in communication. There are educators, and then there are communicators. Yep. Educators want to sound smart at the sacrifice of how simple things are, right? And making, something that's a simple, like, one sentence communication into 2 paragraphs.
Right. Absolutely.
And if you're not confused, they're not doing it right. Basically, And so for me, being a communicator, I want to make these seemingly complex things very simple to understand. So people are just like, of course, it just makes sense.
Why wouldn't I do that? Right.
And for me, I knew that was starting to kind of emerge as something that I was good at, and I felt I was limiting myself to sharing it to one person at a time. So maybe I could see 8 people a day in my office, because I took the time with the person. And so I was like, I need to write this down, or I need to record this or something. Yeah. And that was really the birthing of, the show. And just the first year was really slow going, but the thing is, great content. And, there's a statement that the cream rises to the top. And eventually, these things will start to merge. So I literally, from my first episode I did, but let me tell you, I don't really talk about this often, but there was a podcast before my podcast. Okay. And I did a TED Talk in Las Vegas. And I came off stage, because speaking was the first transition to reach multiple people, because that's what I knew was available. And so this couple came up to me after I got off stage, and I just gotten online, and we had like 100 visits to the website a month or something crazy, because you also had this idea, if you build it, they will come. Right. Just wasn't
happening.
Doesn't
happen that way, right?
And they came up to me and they let me know they had 1 million unique visitors a month to their site, this big wellness website, and they just started a podcast, and they're looking for somebody to be the face of the podcast, and they wanted me to do it, and I was just like, oh my, that's incredible.
Right, of course I'll do it.
I was like, but in my head I was like, what the hell is a podcast? Right. I didn't even know what it was.
Right.
And so we did that for about a year and a half and had hundreds of thousands of downloads because of their reach and also the content. I helped to affirm their brand. I gave them credibility, but I was not building my own thing. And so, we amicably parted ways eventually, and that's when I started my show. So right out of the gate, I knew what I was doing because you kind of figure it out and really find your voice, which the crazy thing is it's your voice. But for me, it's just being more and more authentic to who I am. Because before I was being very scholarly, in my communication, just to show all this stuff that I know. And, even though it was backed up by science, but just the communication wasn't me, just to be fully authentically just like, I'm a cool person,
Yeah.
And so.
Well, I think it's tough too. I don't have any formal training, right? You just kind of by trial and error, you figure it out, and you're like, oh man, I sounded dumb there, or I'm doing better now. I got more energy, whatever, So you just gotta. It's baptism by fire.
Exactly, and just put the reps in. Yeah. And so over that first year was, it's pretty slow going, but I was creating and thinking from that first episode that I am reaching 1 million people, and just giving value and adding. Insights and tools and strategies to 1 million people, even though it was like 100.
Right.
But now today, every day, thousands of people go back and listen to that first episode from 6 years ago, every single day. And I'm confident about it because I was being me. Even though it wasn't like the best I've ever done, I know that people are walking away better having pushed play, And so after that year, other people started finding out about me, and it just takes for the right people to come into your circle and just kind of let people know. And I've got this catalog now that people can go and dive into. So
and it's amazing to me, and I'm sure you found this already before I did, but just how small the world is too, right? How connected. I was looking at your stuff last night, and some of the people, Dave Meltzer, for example, was on your show. He's on my show. And just multiple people, and it's just, but how abundant those people are of their time. I didn't pay you to come in here today, but you're getting paid big dollars to go do other things. But just how small this world is and how abundant of time people are. And I think for me in a business world, that's shown me a lot that, man, we got to help a lot of people, right? I keep talking about future greater than your past. And that's to what yours is, helping us be the strongest, healthiest, happiest version of ourselves. And mine is the future greater than your past. And I think once you know that, again, this is for our listeners, once you know that and you're passionate about it, that's what drives you every day, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think you forget about the money and you forget about the things that you want to do and the things you want to accomplish, and it truly is about the passion and the purpose of why you're doing it. So, totally. Talk to us though about the vision and the planning, and you keep going like that, and it is in your mind, it's your mind's eye, right? So, what's that process like for you? What about the person listening to this right now? It's like, gosh, I've got this vision, I'm doing something, but I don't know exactly where to go with it. How do you help that person?
You're not supposed to know exactly where to go. That's the thing. You really got to get that. Even the vision itself doesn't have to be like crystal clear. That's one of the things that some of the the teachers out there would say. You got to get a crystal clear vision. It's just like
it doesn't work that way.
The analogy of even from here, I can't see my house from here, right? The vision, the pathway to get there. It will just say it's pitch black outside. I'm not going to be able to see all the steps.
Right.
I'm maybe going to be able to see, 300 yards in the darkness. But as I go, I'm going to start to see markers and things that are letting me know I'm on the right track. Yeah. And things become more and more clear the closer that I get. And once you get close enough, then it becomes very clear. It's so clear you can touch it. It's so clear you can open the door and walk through. Yep. But it's just you starting and walking along the path. That's how it becomes more clear to you. So please understand, you don't have to know all the steps. You just need to start walking. You just need to start going in that direction. Get a compass, know the direction, the general direction you're going to go. And that just is something that's based on how you feel, something that you feel called to do or compelled to do or that feels good to you. That's the greatest feedback mechanism we have. If something, again, that you're doing, not everything is going to be fun. Let's be clear about that. But the heart of what you're doing, if it is creating, suffering and just this a huge weight on your shoulders that you just don't want to carry, then it's probably not the right thing for you. And just honoring, like, I feel good when I do this. I feel good when I am working on leadership with my team versus when I'm doing accounting or whatever it is. Or I love the numbers.
Right.
and yet you're trying to stand out in front of people because you believe that that's what you're supposed to do.
Yep.
So kind of just honoring that inner guidance system and start walking on the path, and you'll figure it out.
So what would you tell the Shawn Stevenson of that guy that wasn't ready 5 years ago? What would you tell the guy of 5 and 10 and 15 years ago? What would you look back and tell that young dude? Not that you're not young now. We're both young now, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We're just getting a little older.
I'm very much in the belief of not messing up my timeline. Where like there's a show on TV, The Flash.
Yeah,
we kind of grew up with that.
My son watches that. Yeah, right now, the one that's on now.
And I saw a meme the other day that said it was basically like, do you remember when The Flash was actually good? Because I watched the first or maybe first and second season of it with my my family. And then it just like started to not, it wasn't quite right. We're very quick to cut the cord because of time,
We're done.
And he started screwing up timelines by going back and changing small things, And so I wouldn't change a thing. Every single thing in my life has led me to the place that I am, and I'm very grateful for that.
How do we calm our minds? I read you're a meditator. I'm a meditator, so I think that's probably going to be the answer. But for our listeners, how do we calm our minds, slow down so we can speed up?
I love that. Slow down so you can speed up. That's exactly what it is. This is a kind of inner technology that's been around for thousands of years, and different. I think the best reference is the different religious texts, whether it's the scripture from the Bible or the Bhagavad Gita or whatever it is. There's this aspect of going within, of being still, because we spend so much time in the outer world, so we get addicted to our senses, that are examining what's going on outside instead of understanding that even all of that stuff is still being assimilated and played inside of our minds. Because even though I'm looking at you right now, I'm not seeing you. I'm seeing a perception of what's played by some glands in the back of my brain. Like I'm seeing you back here.
Right.
And so
that's a good point. Really
understanding that we create the world from the inside out and not the other way around. Yep. And the more that we can take authority, because that's the only thing that we really can govern in our life, is our own minds and our bodies to a degree. But it takes practice, and this is why it's called a practice. To just sit, to be still. And for me, it's just like looking at what is the goal. For you, it might be, to have more peace. It might be have more sense of calm and patience. It might be to get more clear on my vision. It might be just to feel more connected. So get clear on what that is, and there's different strategies for that and different practices. So it might be a seated practice where you're just, sitting and focusing on your breathing, which can really help to manage your parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system to help to reduce stress and make you feel more calm. And when you practice that and cultivate it, it starts to carry over into your life. Right. And I've talked to the top people in the world in the subject matter who've done the studies, who got people in the lab who are looking at these numbers, and it's just across the board. Almost 100% of the time, when you simply have a meditation practice, you do create more peace throughout the rest of the day. So that's one way. If you find that, sitting and, focusing on your breathing or, visualization or whatever it is, just being still like that is just not you. That's okay. There are other things that you can do to create some of that. There are moving meditations like Tai Chi and Qigong. And I've even cited some of the studies in Sleep Smarter related to improving sleep by doing Qigong, for example, and seeing higher levels of melatonin and things like that. And even just this word today, which is you're going to hear a lot more of it, is just mindfulness.
Yep.
Right? So even if you're not doing a seated practice, just being there and being present. So I do that. This has really been kind of the dominant meditation practice for me recently, having a new baby, which, he's 7 now, but
right.
That was really a transition for me, because before that I was like spending 30 minutes every morning meditating, and
it's tougher.
Yeah. So we do more, but he meditates with us every morning now, but it's just being present. So this is one of the things we miss out on, especially because of our devices. Right. And so sitting, just talking with my son, even last night, he was sitting next to me, and I got my phone right there, and I put the phone down, and I really listen, to the sound of his voice. I look at his expressions in his face. I pay attention to the words that he's saying, and just marvel at the things that are coming out, just like I had a part to play in this beautiful creation in this moment. It just brings so much joy and peace and a sense of everything is okay.
Yep.
Simply having a mindfulness practice.
Yeah. I think it's I do it too. My kids, it's funny because they got these Alexas in their rooms, and I use Headspace. I'm sure you've heard of that, and you probably know Andy. But it's just neat to see even them say, hey, Alexa, play Headspace, and then they're meditating. And it's just, if we can start them early with that stuff. Yeah. I mean, I know for me I'm an anxious, nervous, go-getting kind of guy, but I need to slow down and breathe and do that kind of stuff. So it's critically important for those people listening. If you're not doing it, I would highly recommend it. And to your point of listening, my 7th, 8th grade history teacher said you have 2 ears, 1 mouth, use them proportionately. And for me, that just obviously stuck with me since then, and it's true. We got to be better listeners. There's a couple more questions here, but let's talk about fears. How many of the fears you put in your mind have actually blown up to the magnitude you put them in your mind to be? And every guest does what you just did. They all laugh.
Oh, man. I mean, it's very, very, very rare.
Right.
We're talking like 1% of the time, And, there's so many different acronyms for fear,
Yeah.
But for me, it's just getting back. It's an inner guidance system, but it becomes hypersensitized because of our lifestyle today.
Yeah.
It's really as simple as that. Because there's so much FOMO, it's fear of missing out. And
have you heard the new one, JOMO?
JOMO, joy of missing out. Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah,
my wife and I were just talking about that 2 days ago.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful thing. I'm all about it.
Right.
But today there's such a heightened state of you're not doing enough. Look at what they're doing. You get access before we'll just say 100 years ago,
right.
200 years ago, you might have some kind of envy or feeling of like I need to be doing what my neighbors are doing. You got a couple 5, 10 neighbors
right.
or whatever. Now it's millions of people, and it's just constant. So it can pull you and elicit more fear that you're not becoming who you need to become or whatever the case might be. And so, but most times this fear is just self-manufactured. Yep. It's just not real.
Right.
It's just not real. And that statement, there's nothing to fear but fear itself. Just having fear and having that be an entity that's guiding your life is just really a terrible way to live.
Yeah, it is. And it's not doing anything good for us, for our sleep and for our all the science and the stuff.
It's
that
just
you know
not worth
about
it.
No.
It's just not worth it.
How do you define happiness?
Peace. For me, happiness is peace and health and gratitude. Just being aware that I'm aware, and even if things aren't perfect, which they never are, being able to embrace the good that does exist in our lives, I think that's what happiness is.
I like it. So on the days you don't want to do it, how do you battle through? So I'm sure not every day you want to get up and drink your water and you want to meditate. Oh, man, I wake up, I feel like $1 million. Maybe you do, but I don't think so. What do you do?
This is the thing about habits is that, you do the habit until the habit becomes who you are in a sense, And so for me, honestly, there are hardly ever days that I feel like that.
That's awesome. You're right, though. I mean, if you get the habit.
But those days, I'll tell you, this is a great example. Today, I'm sore. My legs are incredibly sore. When your legs are not under you, it just it slows you down. And my wife, she can be a little bit opposite with me, which tends to happen in a lot of relationships. Right. And so she was trying to seduce me into not going out today and going to the gym. Yeah. And, my son, he had an off day, like I said today.
He said that, yeah.
But then there was a camp. I was like, why doesn't he go to the camp? And she was like, oh, he could just stay home. And just like trying to get me to stay in and not accomplish stuff today, that I need to get done, which, the truth be told, I could do it later. I could do it tomorrow, But for me, I just had to stand firm and understand, like, let's execute now.
Yep.
And then we can just be free, we could just do what we need to do now. We could be free a little bit later. So I think that I've cultivated this sense of delayed gratification.
Yeah.
And, there's studies about that, even the kids with the marshmallow test,
Yep.
And seeing how having that be a quality that you have creates more happiness and success. Yep. And it's not that I don't get to have the fun or the things that I want. I'm just going to execute first and find joy in that. I'm here with you,
right.
Find joy in that. And I'll get to have my downtime or my whatever it is in a little bit.
But I think it also probably, I don't want to say ruins, but it definitely changes your afternoon, your Friday night, right? If you don't, like, I'm a big water guy too, and I find if I don't get my water intake in the morning before I even get to the office, something's off.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And I'm sure that's the same way for you. So quickly, talk to us about the book, Sleep Smarter. You can find it, obviously, on Amazon, any kind of book place. But tell us about the book.
Sure. I'm just so blown away by it. And literally every day I give thanks. And I'm just grateful that it was something that I got to be a part of. And, now it's like, I think it's translated in like 20 countries, like I said.
It's nuts.
And it's crazy because every day I see people posting, these different languages, and it is just blowing my mind. And so it's 21 clinically proven strategies to improve your sleep quality. And you don't have to do all 21. You could pick and choose the things. But what I found to be the most effective for people is stacking conditions in their favor. And the stories that I've received, man, just like, people struggling with, even recently sleep disorders, but, decades.
Right.
Reading the book, employing the strategies, and the stories that come in, it just makes it all worth it. And there's also a 21-day sleep makeover in the book as well. And so, people can pick it up, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, all that good stuff.
Awesome.
And, very grateful for it.
Well, man, it's been great having you here. And
Thank you.
where can our listeners find more of Shawn Stevenson?
Perfect. Yeah, so where they listening to this awesome podcast, they could find me. It's called The Model Health Show is my show, and it's my big passion project that I put a lot into. And also they can come to my home online is themodelhealthshow.com, and all my social media is there. They can find Sleep Smarter there as well. Videos of every episode, so you can hang out in the studio with me. And that's where you can find me. Awesome, man. Well, it's been great having you. Thank you for joining us on the Big 550 KTRS on the Circuit of Success. Again, I'm your host, Brett Gilliland. You've been listening to Shawn Stevenson. Man, I'm going to work on all that stuff. I got a ton of value from this today, and I could go on for another hour, but I don't think anybody else wants to listen with me talking for another hour. So thanks for being with us. Join us next week on the Circuit of Success.